Oh man, I just lost this video. I hate when that happens. An automatic upload. And I noticed the last video has low audio. I've turned the audio up. Okay, this is for Beethovens 7th. And what I was talking about, what I would like to say in reply to some of our comments, is I would like to acknowledge that you have hit an interesting point, facet that affects relativism fairly deeply, I think. And they are compromises on relativism. They are why relativism itself is also not entirely absolute. Okay, but relativism also doesn't fail in those situations. But okay, so what you were talking about was the 0 point. And it's true, if you measure something 0, then it's not, for example, it's not going to have a mass, so it's not going to be warped by um, time dilation and mass dilation. On the other hand, if you do measure something, it will be. But in the case of 0, there seems to be something special. And also, I will even add to that, I noticed that, if we take quantum mechanics as our source metaphor, then there can be 0 probability. Nothing can be 100% probable. That would mean the waveform was like infinitely short and, to contain 1 unit of probability in exactly 1 point. And that's impossible. But the wave function does go to 0. There are places where the electron can't be, and of course outside the wave packet it's considered to be 0. The funny thing about that 0 is that if you look at space, there seems to be these quantum fluctuations. Nothing stays perfectly 0. When you look right at 0, everything is made of something rather than nothing, okay? And there's these quantum fluctuations. And the other thing is about 0 in terms of being an absolute where you put 0. It depends on what you mean by 0, because, for example, in a coordinate system, one-dimensional or two-dimensional system, you have these coordinates. You can put the origin, the 0 point, anywhere you want. If in a motor, a computer-controlled motor, the 0 point is arbitrary. You tell the motor, okay, right now consider the 0, and then you measure from there. The measurements are still relative. But I do admit that there's an interesting thing there that's worth talking more, and it's even a challenge for relativity, And since you brought up something like that, and I like when somebody comes up with a successfully challenging issue for relativity, or just in general, I will add another place where relativity, interestingly, seems to fail in a certain respect, which is rotational velocity. Rotational velocity is not relative because inertial reference frames are not relative. You can tell if you're in accelerated reference frames. Inertial frames are relative, of course. Accelerated reference frames are not, and so you can tell if you're accelerating at 1g, for example. And you can tell if you're spinning. Spinning twice as fast does make a difference. Now, I think the reason that this is successfully handled by relativity is because if you look closely at something spinning, it's really a multitude of objects, namely atoms. And so you have millions of relationships. And as these relationships intertwine, you can triangulate more and more. And this is what I think I said in one of the comments, if it took, that this is analogous to a transcendental number where you can learn pi to whatever accuracy you want, but you never will learn absolutely every digit of pi. You will never get an absolute idea of pi. It will always be approximate, okay? But you can know it arbitrarily well, and that is more than good enough. And it's interesting that these irrational and even transcendental numbers appear so much in physics equations, where the original mathematics, they weren't even conceived of. All right, cheers. It was a good point. Welcome to pursue it, or not, as you see fit. Okay.